Morning, friends. Today it's a bit chillier. Finally, fall has come, and it's a nice balmy 13 degrees outside, partly cloudy, and I have to say I'm pretty happy about it. I've been looking forward to this kind of weather for a while. After going through the brutal summer, it's nice to have a little break where it's just kind of, mild jacket weather, not too hot, not too cold, is just kind of right at that perfect temperate weather pattern, which is generally my favorite weather just my favorite weather. So if you might have noticed, I was missing yesterday. Um, it was Yom Kippur, as I'm Jewish. I was fasting and I was in synagogue the other day, so I didn't have the opportunity to make mornings with wosX, and I couldn't have my signature tea because during the fast you're not allowed to eat or drink for around 25 hours. So I'm enjoying my nice green tea with lemon, and it was a good fast. It was definitely difficult. The end, most of the time I'm actually more inclined to be hungry during a fast. This year was a little different. This time I was actually a lot more thirsty. I was a lot craving a lot more water than I normally would, which to me I found a little bit interesting. So today, that's just been kind of on my mind, a lot more spiritual thoughts, a lot more, metaphysical, mystical sort of elements about God and the universe and all of that have been popping up into my mind. I'm reading two books at the moment right now. One is Cosmos by Carl Sagan, and the other is the Torah with some rabbinical commentary. So these are sort of like, I guess, people would like to equate them as two polar opposites in terms of beliefs, but in my view, reading both of them together, it's sort of finding the middle ground of finding the divine compromise between these two sides, which I feel is a very important thing to do, especially when confronting your own spirituality. And that's what the main subject, I guess, of this talk is mostly about. I guess we would say agnosticism, right? The place in the middle where you're not really sure whether you believe in God or you believe in the rational atheist science way, which is that God doesn't exist. And these are two sort of polar extremes. When I was agnostic, now I'm kind of more, I would say, spiritual in the sense, or I feel more confident in the belief of some sort of God in the way that I could imagine it, but not in the sense of what most religions try to refer it to. It's what my interpretation of what God is that is, I think, different than most people's. So when I was agnostic, it was a point in my time where I believed that I didn't have enough information, I didn't have enough knowledge, or I didn't have enough insight as to understanding how the universe and how life worked to even begin to have an opinion on that sort of thing. People are very strong about their opinions, whether God exists or he doesn't exist, and then once there's an agnostic person that comes in, it sort of defeats both of their purposes, and they sort of call them on the fence, people who are weak-minded, they don't want to make a decision. It's another one of those centrism type of things where these people are basically separating themselves out of these, two rigid categories and saying, you know what, we don't actually know anything. We are in a state where we have no insight, we have no actual knowledge of God, if he exists or it doesn't exist. So the whole question as to arguing either side is a little bit ridiculous, and that was what the belief I held for a long time. Now I have more of a belief towards believing in a God of some sort, but I still have the agnostic side of me, the part that will always doubt, that will always sort of question. I wouldn't say doubt, but I would say question it and sort of clarify what my interpretation of God is and how I can clarify it further into my understanding. And I think that's the most important part if you're interested in spirituality. A lot of people who are agnostic or atheist are simply just not interested in the concept of finding spirituality or finding God or whatnot, and that's perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. You can lead a perfectly, wholesome and happiness-filled life without needing to fulfill these, goals, which is, I think, part of the thing that offends a lot of atheists or religious people a lot, is that people find that they don't need to follow religion, or they don't need to have a belief about religion in order to feel confident in themselves, which is, at least to me when I was more agnostic, was definitely an empowering feeling for me at that time. And then, there comes a point where I feel like I need to find sort of an answer, or not an answer, but sort of a clarification and an understanding more as where I come from. And what I found was, a lot of people like to explore different religions and then find the religion for them. I sort of disagree with that notion of finding a religion. I believe that you sort of have to find your own pathway into understanding. If you choose to go down that road, you have to find your own path and your own understanding, because finding a religion is somebody else's belief. It's not your own. It's not your own path of understanding. It's somebody else's, and you're not going to get nearly as far as you could if you're doing it on your own. And of course, that comes from obviously learning about other religions, learning about other people's perspectives, but you're not doing it because you're trying to find something to follow. You're doing it because you want to find clarification, and you're trying to find, all right, what is something about this that I could identify with and I can follow and sort of attain some sense of enlightenment or whatever you're looking for. So that was, to me, the aspect of exploring religion, was not to find a religion or to choose a religion. It was to merely find my own belief system and, clarify it and construct it, deconstruct it, and, really spend that time to find out what my real beliefs were. So, the point I'm trying to make is, if you're agnostic, that's probably the best place you can be if you're younger or whatnot. If you've already solidified yourself in a religion, I would personally stray away from that mindset, because you are going to become enslaved by this religion. If something comes about that disproves you, you're not going to want to be open to it. You're going to be closed off into your own little bubble, in your own little religious bubble. And that's why we have so many ideological wars going on, especially with religion, especially in the Middle East. You have these religions that are all worshiping the same God, but they're so rigid in their own belief systems that they disagree extremely, to the point where they believe that killing each other is the solution. And that's the problem that comes from being rigid in your beliefs. And being agnostic and being open to the possibility of God existing or God not existing is the reason why it's the way forward. It's the way to attaining an open mind and to accepting other people's views, because you're not seeing somebody else's views. Say they're a Buddhist and you're saying, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know shit, God doesn't exist, all this meditation is bullshit. You're saying, that's interesting, I want to know more about this. Why do you feel like you can attain happiness from this? Why do you do this in the first place? Why do you believe in this? You're asking questions. That's what being agnostic is. You're constantly asking the questions, because you ultimately don't know, and you never will. And that's sort of the beauty of being, not knowing, is that you're always constantly learning, because you keep the mentality that, all right, I don't know anything, I need to find out more. Once you once you put yourself in a rigid mindset that you already know everything, you're not going to learn anything, and you're not going to expand and appreciate anything anymore because you're so caught up in the rigidness of religion and of belief that you'll just degrade your own mind at that point. And I can criticize atheism as well, a lot of ways, because it's the same thing. It's a religion just like anything else, except it's the religion that God doesn't exist. It's the religion that that can lead into this sense of superiority that, like, oh, I'm a man of science and a man of rationality. I know more than you because I follow this, basically this religion, which, there's a lot of science that's good and there's a lot of science that's real, but you're solidifying yourself into this process that will degrade yourself because it's not, science isn't supposed to be a religion or supposed to be the absolute truth. It's supposed to be, a system of observation and a system of rationalizing and of just simply putting the pieces together to find the truth. It's not about this is the truth that we've discovered. It's about, all right, how can we perfect this? How can we make it more of the truth? At least that's what I believe it to be. So anyway, that was on my mind today. Hope you all have a wonderful day.